What's up, gang? It's Deltia from deltiasgaming.com, and in this video I'm going to show you the Maelstrom Arena Sorcerer build that I used to beat Maelstrom Arena a few days ago. So we're going to go over gear, skills, champion points, and a little bit of tips and gameplay on how exactly you beat Maelstrom Arena as a sorcerer. So you're looking forward to that build? Here we go. So first things first, we're going to cover skills, and I'm going to go inside the Maelstrom Arena round 1 and kind of show you how I use them. The primary bar that I'm going to be on is usually a fire staff. Sometimes I switch to lightning, but I really like fire because you have the heavy attack and you can weave in and out. Those sorts excel at lightning staffs. So the setup that I use is basically a modified PvP version. I treat Maelstrom Arena kind of like solo PvP. I don't do a whole lot of solo PvP, but when I did, this is kind of what I used. I used Streak. It actually does a decent amount of damage, and it stuns enemies for 1.5 seconds. A lot of the things you're going to encounter in this, besides boss and some elites, are stunnable. So you want to take advantage of that, especially with an AoE stun. The trick to using Streak is to not overcast it, especially within 4 seconds. So you stun through mobs, turn around, blow them up. Second ability is Crushing Shot. This is from a Destruction Staff skill line, and I took this morph over Force Pulse because range interrupts are actually pretty useful here, though you're going to have to switch this out to Destructive Reach in round 7. Watch more of my videos on that, but I like Crushing Shot. That's my main spammable ability that I'm going to use. The third ability is somewhat, not controversial, but optional, which is Hardened Ward. I put this on my front bar, and the reason being is I don't always trust the animations and bar swapping to be 100% accurate. Meaning there's some rounds where you get CC'd multiple times, you get chains, you get pulled, and if you take 1 or 0.5 seconds to switch your bar and cast your ward, you might die. So this is my panic button, and I do double bar it. What it does is creates a huge damage shield around you. The thing about Hardened Ward, it absorbs physical and magic. So basically anything. That's why I put this over Harness up here. Now Harness Magic, the light armor that I go with, it gives you back magic, 13,000 spell damage. It does last longer, but it's only spell damage. So depending on the round that you're going to face, it really depends on which ward you want to front bar. Hardened Ward's cheaper, but Harness gives you back stuff. Hardened Ward, it will defend against physical damage from archers, like in round 5. Harness will defend against magic damage and basically keep your resources topped off, like Daedra in round 9 or 1. Just depends on what you're going to face. So try to frequently put this in and out and what works best for you. Once you get more comfortable with the arena and you know about the bar swaps, your mechanics, I recommend putting Malicious Curse in the place of it. You'll be able to do more single target damage and burst important targets down. So think about using that. Speaking of burst and targets, Elemental Ring. I do like Pulsar for PvP, but Elemental Ring for me is nice AoE that the Sorc has because it's mobile. It only has a 6-meter radius, but it does do damage and damage over time effect, which I really like, especially if you're going to nuke down a couple mobs. The way I use this, I like to streak in to stun the mobs and just spam all the good old fire ring. Enough spams, you're going to get your good old C-Frags proc. C-Frags hits extremely hard. It's a range stun. It doesn't cost that much if you wait for the proc, the sound, your hands glow, and you're going to throw it and fling it like a hot fire rocket grenade thing. You guys know what it is. So the proc that you're waiting for is that. You hear the sound, as a Sorc you'll recognize the sound and you'll see your hands glow. You're going to get about 7 seconds to cast that before it becomes back to normal. Boom, you hear it, and you click it, it fires it off. And the reason you want to use it, lower cost, it's going to be insta-cast. And there's a trick that you can use C-Frags to speed up your DPS I'll show you inside the arena. Last ability up is good old Shooting Star. The reason I use Shooting Star in the front bar is 1, it gives me mage's passives for just having it slotted. You can also do something else if you want more magic recovery and you have a high alliance rank, is slotting Barrier. If you have the Magical Aid passive, especially if you're Alliance rank 10, you can get 10% just for merely slotting this. That goes really well with this build. But if you don't have that, because I just rolled this character, Shooting Star is a good choice. It's an AoE ultimate, does a lot of damage, Plus, if you hit enough targets, you'll be able to get back a lot more ultimate, and that's going to be useful for our Overload on our back bar. Overload, what does it do? It's probably the best ultimate that we have as a Sorc. I went with Energy Overload. Essentially, you're going to light attack, you're going to do shock damage, and you're going to get back resources. So you're going to do damage and get back magic. Now, when you run an ultimate, it turns off. The thing is, though, as a Sorc, you can save up 1,000 ultimate and basically make any match really, really easy. So Overload is this. You'll notice that my skills change when I turn it on. Overload gives you a third bar. No, this is not an exploit. This is just working as intended. So the thing is, I like to set up a couple different skills on my bar. I use my Execute on my Overload bar, and then also another ability that is underrated, and that is Dark Conversion. Bargains to restore health and magic at the cost of stamina. So what I do in between rounds, when I'm out of magic that I've depleted, I'll turn on Overload and I'll spam cast this, taking my stamina away to give me magic. So let's just cast this a couple times. And you can see, boom, of course, Engine Guardian procs there. We're going to get together later. And I also keep my wards up on this bar as well, because if I am in pressured, I have to have my 1 buff up, my 2 wards, and I'll just spam Overload like that. Okay, so this is my restoration bar, and what it normally looks like. The number 1 most important ward, I think, is Healing Ward. What it does is covers yourself with a bubble. The more health you have gone, or I guess the less health you have, the harder your ward is. So when I'm in trouble and I'm about to die, I'm going to use Healing Word. Let me show you the power of Healing Word. We're going to take Equilibrium to basically kill myself, though it can't kill you all the way. You put Healing Word on, and then you wait that 5 seconds for the duration to be over. And of course, Engine Guardian procs health, and then you go to 100% health. So that's the whole trick of being a Sorc without having a whole lot of healing, is simply Healing Word. If you can survive until Healing Word pops with your other bubbles and barriers, boom, 36,000 heal. So you can survive almost anything, and that's why Sorcs are a bit powerful, maybe a little bit overpowered in this. Okay, so what wards are we talking about? Well, we talked about Light Armor, Harness Magicka. That's spell damage. We're going to cast that on top of it. But the most important one to cast on top of it is Harden. Remember, it affects against anything. So what this is going to look like if I'm taking a lot of pressure, I'm about to die, I'm going to go boom, 5 key, Harden, Harness, and just survive. The trick is, do not overcast Healing Word, because every time you cast it, it's going to reset the duration. Only recast it if the Healing Word has gone away. Otherwise, you're going to basically still be at that same health threshold. If you're taking a lot of pressure and you're just about to die, just sit here and literally cast Healing Word. It looks cheesy, but it works. And line of sight, get behind stuff. Remember, these mobs will come to you. They have to come to you. So you just do, and you'll sit there and cast it over and over and over. It's cheesy, but believe me, it works. And if you want to complete this, you got to do what works. Okay, so my buff that I'm going to maintain is Power Surge. Gives me sorcery and gives me a lot of self-healing. Critical strikes heal me for 40% damage done. You can go Entropy or this, but I like Power Surge over Entropy for this application. And the reason is, if my wards are down and I'm in that panic mode, if I hit a critical C-Frags, which is around 26,000 damage when I'm all buffed and everything said, I'm going to heal for 40% of 26,000. Do the math. That's about a 9,000 or so self-heal. So it's a way to get out of jail if your wards are down and you just forgot to cast them. That's why I like Power Surge. It also lasts for 33 seconds. That's a lot longer than Entropy. So the more uptime we have, more damage we can do. Boundless Storm. Major physical and spell resistance plus much needed speed. It's all about speed and mobility here. So the thing to know about this is that the duration lasts 23 seconds for the physical and spell resistance. The speed does not. So you're going to have to recast this almost every 8 seconds. Another nice thing about Boundless Storm that's underrated, I think, is the Disintegration proc. It gives all shock spells 6% chance to instantly disintegrate low health targets. So if you're putting your Boundless Storms up and you're streaking through mobs like this, you can just basically vaporize them all, simply just by having those two abilities up. Okay, talked about, let's actually go in here and see what we can do. Okay, we're at the start of the round, so all you got to do is keep your buffs up. So I'm just going to go left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have all my buffs that I need. I'm going to go back to my front bar. I'm going to use Streak offensively to stun targets. And then boom. Streak offensively, stun targets. Trick, don't overcast it. Remember, you're going to need to save it every 4 seconds. Also, I'm going to keep using C-Frags as it becomes proc. That's my #1 and most important ability. Keep casting until C-Frags is proc, until you hear it or see that sound. You'll get used to it after a while. Once the mobs are continuing to spawn, always go back and recast all your buffs, because you don't know when you're going to get a chance to do it again. So these little Daedroth guys create speed. They cannot be stunned, but you can still use the speed. And if you're in trouble, literally just run around in a circle like this. Use your healing ward, so on and so forth. It's not that hard. And then I'm just going to kite, like a kite. Keep my speed up. Remember, these are NPCs. They're not players. They have to do what they're told. Use that to your advantage. And when you're on your offensive bar, remember, you have that 3 key as a panic button. And in between rounds, I'm going to use Dark Conversion like I said earlier. Boom, full magic. All my buffs are up. Physical damage dealers like this guy is very, very troublesome. So go through him, stun, and blow up. I'm going to single target this guy. I'm going to look at my health down right now, right? I'm about to die. Boom, harden, bar swap, healing, harness, life's good. Go back to doing damage. Notice I did not cast Healing Ward a bunch of times. You need to only cast it once, especially if your wards are up. Okay, so all my buffs are about down, so I'm going to bar swap. 1, 2, 3, and streak through those mobs. I'm going to streak through the mobs I don't want to kill, and usually I prioritize range over melee, because these melee are simple. They can just be kited and just do this. Okay, I have tons of ultimate, right? Turn your overload on. 50% magic, not so fast, my friends. I'm back to full magic. Reapply my wards and my buffs. I'm not going to panic. Streak through. We have a melee guy chasing us, but an archer. So we're going to nuke that archer. Hit the wrong target there. And then we're just going to get on this guy. He summons those little skeletons. Don't worry about them because they're stunnable. Just streak through them like I did there. And if he's chasing you, use your Boundless Storms for more speed. That's it. Okay. So now Brown's over. What do? Overload. Go back to full resources. Turn it off. Buff. All 4. 3, 2, 1. Buff. If you get really good at it and you're not talking, yapping in the video, you can basically go to full resources whenever you want. Also, you see what I did there? Dodge rolled. That NPC, the melee guy, he actually can stun you like a Dragon Knight using talons, because that's kind of what he is. So if you have excessive stamina, over stamina, you can either use a dodge roll or a streak to get out of dodge. So like right here, I can use a dodge roll or a streak. The trick is I like to use one after the other. So I'll use a dodge roll here, and then I'll use a streak. So I don't do 2 streaks, I don't do 2 dodge rolls. If that energy beam's glowing, good old Engine Guardian, I'll just do a dodge roll. Okay, so now I'm taking a lot of pressure, right? And I'm really not doing a whole lot of damage. So I'm going to continue to cast my wards, and yet at some point you just have to kill something. So that's why I like having that extra ward on my front bar. So I'm going to look at my health bar, I'm just looking at it. Okay, my wards are up so I can be offensive. Wards are up, wards down. Cast the ward. I still have Power Surge up, which is really the buff I just have to have up at all times. Okay, now we're in trouble. Now we're good. So if you are having struggles, remember that before the next round comes, you control when it goes on. So this little guy, this Flesh Atronach, he has to follow me, right? Let's say I'm out of resources and I want a little bit breathing room. I'll turn Overload on, get my Dark Conversion going, back to full resources, turn it off, do all my buffs, and then blow this guy's face off. Streak, and kabloomy blomby blom. And that's it. You controlled the fight, not the mobs. And then on the boss round, what I do is usually save my overload for the boss round. So I think it's the boss round. Okay, so we're going to buff all my buffs, overload, and then I'm just going to tab target this boss and just blow his face off. Now you'll notice I have my buffs and my wards on this bar, and I do that specifically because I don't want to run out and have to turn them on and off if I ward's down. So all I'm doing is just blowing this guy's face off. Now my damage is a little bit low because I have my Atronach Mundustone on, but I usually go with the other one. So the damage seems a little bit low, but this thing can hit for 26,000, especially if you use a power-up. So now it's trying to summon his little friends here. You can either blow them up or just continue to work on him. So we're going to speed this up a little bit. Overload. I got my 2 wards on there. You see? I'm trying to get him into execute range. And it's out. So we're going to turn it back off and streak through. I'm immobilized. Got a C-frags up. We're close to execute range now. So we need to get that 20% mark, and then we can turn overload back on. Oops. Ward. Overload. I'm going to make sure all my buffs are up. Tab target him once again. My buffs went down. My ward went down. Tab target. Ward. At some point, he's going to do pause, and you get the kill. So that's the first round. It's very easy, but that's how I use the skills. And it's going to take time to get this down. I highly recommend, until you become really, really good at the Sorc and bar swapping, to double bar hardened ward. It's your panic button. You gotta double bar it. So let's talk about the things that keep this going, and that is the good old gear and champion points. Well, let's see if I get any loot in here. What do I get? Nothing. Boo. Remember to always repair after these rounds here and sell junk. You can buy basic stuff here. Soul gems, whatever this is. Junky junk. But basically soul gems and potions. Especially if you need magic potions. So magic and recovery. There's a fine balance between the recovery that you need as a Sorc and going all out damage. The thing that I like to do is recognize that as a Sorc, you have a couple ways to get magic back. So I don't focus heavily on recovery. The reason being is we already talked about energy overload, right? If we conserve our ultimate, we can basically trade ultimate for magic. You can also use good old harness magic, that will give you back magic and resources. So you can go the all-out DPS route and then use Engine Guardian. This will proc enough, and I have my crappy helm on, but this will proc enough magic that you basically don't need a whole lot else, especially if you're using Overload. Because once in a while, it will give you magic and pretty much put you back to full. In combination with Dark Conversion in between rounds, I really don't have a whole lot of resource problems. So the gear that I used 2 different types when I completed this arena. I used Julianos, 5-piece Julianos, and I've also used a 5-piece Twiceborn Star. They both perform very, very similar. I think Twiceborn Star is a little bit better, but Julianos has more capabilities to do PvP. You get flexibility in your Mundustone. So I would recommend Julianos, all Divines gear if you can. And with that, unbuffed, it puts me at 26,000 spell damage. And I do have the Atronach Mundustone, and I'm at 1400 recovery with the Engine Guardian on. That's a lot of recovery, especially with Engine Guardian on and the way I use my ultimates. So you can go all DPS and go with the Atronach or the Thief or the Shadow, whatever you want instead of this. Also, I'm a vampire that's purely for PvP, so I recommend not being a vampire for this. It doesn't have a whole lot of benefits to us. But you can get this unbuffed to about 3,000 if you play your cards right, if you go the Apprentice. And that's going to give you the damage you need to be able to survive. The magic and recovery you're going to get back, like I said, there are going to be other ways you can get that back. And so I go all spell damage on my willpower jewelry. And if you're wanting to look at what the Maelstrom staff looks like, luckily I got this my very first clear, and it's absolutely amazing. Regeneration restores magic when you critically hit. So sometimes I will slot rapid regeneration or mutagen and put this on, and the reason being, it gives me a heal, it lasts a long time, and it'll actually give me back more magic than it costs to cast. So it's extremely powerful if you're waiting, if you want an incentive to continue to do Maelstrom Arena. I don't have the Maelstrom Arena staff, so I'm using this with Magicka Return, Precise over Nirnhone, though Nirnhone's a very, very good option. It's kind of expensive now. And that's my setup. So a couple other things to do to try to find out what you like. And it's about you, not me. You don't need a whole lot of health. And the reason why is if you have max magic, you're going to use that to produce massive amount of wards. So really they shouldn't be getting to your health that much. And you can also use this, the smoked bear haunch, whatever the heck that is. So sometimes I use that over Engine Guardian, and I use my Molag Kina set with all light armor. I know everyone has Molag Kina. Lich Crystal or the Narayana set is also a good option as well. Or if you don't have any of that stuff, you can simply just go Julianos and then like 3-piece Magnus. So head, chest, or whatever. There's plenty of different combinations. With the new Trinamax set out, you can even go that as well. Whatever. Find a way to balance your resources with doing damage. I found in the later rounds, it just came down to me for doing just way more damage. Speaking of that, Deltia, why don't you have Inner Light on? Like I said earlier, I like the flexibility in this build to be able to have more skills, specifically Hardened Ward. Though, if you are experienced, I definitely would do this. Put Inner Light on here, and then put Inner Light on instead of Boundless Storms. That's going to give you a lot more crit, even more magic. Let's see what that looks like. Put up to 34,000 magic. It's 55% spell crit. Not bad. And if we're at about 3,000 spell damage, this thing would be hitting like a truck. And then if you want to do that route, use just your typical magic potion and blow through those suckers. They don't do any good in your bank. If you don't, you want to be conservative like I did, you can craft these spell critical potions. It's going to give you spell crit for 47 seconds, health, and magic. They're expensive, but if you want to beat this, especially your first time, you gotta put your money where your mouth is, especially in consumables. So to recap, go with either the Engine Guardian and low regeneration setup with your ultimate, or go high regeneration with Molag Kina, or another 2-piece set that produces damage. And that's what I did for gear. So as a Magic Sorc, champion points are pretty simple. The 501 cap is in place now, and I like a split on my Magic Sorc because I'm a High Elf. High Elf gives me regeneration. So if I'm using food, the way it stacks, I don't know the math, but it seems like regeneration is more beneficial as a High Elf with regeneration. So I do a 50-50 split roughly between reduced cost here in the Magician and then regeneration in the green tree. I don't put any other points in any of this stuff. It just doesn't seem worthwhile. And so the number one priority to do as a Magic Sorc, regardless of your champion points, is to get spell precision. 12% extra crit. So the math nerds think that Elfborn and then Spell Erosion, a 58-9 split is probably the best. But if you're low CP, do 15-15 or here. I don't put any in Blessed because I don't really need the self-healing with Healing Ward. I don't do Elemental Expert because a lot of my damage is straight magic damage, though this could increase Crushing Shot quite a bit. So just play around with it if you think that's more beneficial. Thaumaturge is your main damage source, so that's going to hit hard with your Crystal Frags, your finisher, all that stuff. So that's why I go with the Thaumaturge over here. The red tree, obviously the most important, is the Bastion. Increases the effectiveness of damage absorbing effects by 24%. That's your bread and butter, your shields. Once you get this, I come over here, and I went Elemental Defender specifically for the last round, where the Daedros are breathing fire in my face. Though you could do it on a 50-50 split here between Elemental Defender and Hardy. And that's going to get you through a lot of that content. Or you could even go with Spell Resistance. Either way. I like the passives here. I mean, 182 health doesn't seem like a lot, but everything matters. And Absorption. If you get hit really hard, you're going to get a flood of magic. Enough to cast Ward at least once, if not twice almost, if you factor in your regeneration. So that's it. I mean, basically this is pretty much the frag out build. It just takes a lot of time and fine-tuning of your individual skill. As I stopped streaming and focused more on my builds and gameplay, I realized that I needed to work a lot more on gameplay and play a lot more and fine-tune my bar swapping, my animation canceling, and all that stuff. So with that being said, I did find a trick with C-Frags that makes it go a lot faster. Let me show you this. Basically what you're going to do is wait for a C-Frags proc, You're going to hit it on a target, and then you're going to hit block right away. What that does is cancel the animation out, and you can do this for almost any ability. Like that, see that? So I can do like, it's basically a 3-button press. It's pretty hard to do, but if you just practice long enough, you can do it. So let's get a C-Frags proc. So I'm going to hit it. Boom. You see how it was instant? Let me show you what a normal C-Frags looks like. So this is a normal C-Frags. So that took, you know, half a second or a second. This is what it looks like on the sped up version. Look at that. I barely put my hand up. And all I'm doing there is doing one left mouse click or whatever if you're on consoles, the actual button or ability, and then the block. So it's 3 buttons. You have to rewire your brain to basically go 1, 2, 3. So it's button, light, C-Frags. Button, light, C-Frags. Light, button, C-Frags. There we go. So let's wait for a C-Frags to proc. We'll try this. Okay. Light, button, C-Frag. See like that? So you can do an extraordinary amount of damage in literally 1 second. Takes a lot of practice, but just continue to work at it. Even just go out and practice it on your own. But if you sit there and get a master at it, pretty soon your brain will just know, and you'll be doing way more damage in a small amount of time. So ready? Boom. Boom. And it just blows up. You need these little things that you learn in your individual class in order to beat this. I imagine this thing will get nerfed and it'll become easier and easier to do over time, but for right now it is very challenging. And every challenging thing is worthwhile doing. I personally don't like solo content, but for this solo content, that's what I use to get this done. I hope this helps you guys out a lot. I've already completed with my Templar, and the Nightblade is probably be next. Stamina, I'm waiting to get Caltrops on a couple characters, because I really think that's going to help to be able to beat it on a stamina class. Here's that C-Frag trick again. Oh! And, oh! Look at that, instantly! Woo! 21k, yeah! So hopefully this build help you. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'm going to be in Elder Scrolls for a long time. You know that.